It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
I got things to say today. Coach Cignetti talked quite a bit at Big Ten Media Days yesterday. We'll go through some of his viral clips. The Indianapolis Colts do not need Keenan Allen. I know everybody's clamoring for him. We need a third one. No, you don't. You don't need Keenan Allen. I promise. We're going to get into that today. Jim Coyle is going to join the show at 1:20. We'll talk Indiana football as, we're less than a month away from the start of the season. Maybe Kent Sterling. We'll see if he's available to come on or not. We got a little bit of audio from Carly Ursay-Gordon. She spoke to the media a little bit earlier today after practice was over. Welcome into the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in. No matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe, you can watch the show on X__Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. And, of course, 1430 AM as well. So let's start with one of the problems of the Shane Steichen era during his time here in Indianapolis. Shane Steichen got the Colts head coaching job because he is an offensive-minded head coach. That is the new fad. If you're kind of young and have been an offensive coordinator and play caller for 5 minutes, you can get a head coaching job in the NFL. Shane Steichen took over a team that had the 4th overall pick in the NFL draft. Part of his job was to develop that 4th overall pick, Anthony Richardson. He couldn't do that. Now, to be fair to him, I don't think there are very many coaches in the NFL that could. Trying to build an NFL-ready quarterback from scratch, which is basically what Anthony Richardson was, given how little he played at Florida. So trying to build an NFL-ready quarterback from scratch in 2 years is like trying to build an airplane while you're already in the air. Not very easy to do. Also, you don't have to be able to develop quarterbacks to be a good head coach in the NFL. Look at Sean McVay. Might be the best coach in the NFL. He didn't develop Jared Goff at all. Say, well, Jonathan, he reached the Super Bowl with Goff. I know that. But if you know anything about that season, Sean McVay would tell Jared Goff the reads or where to throw the football before their communications were cut off with 15 seconds to go. McVay wasn't teaching Jared Goff how to drive. He was steering the remote control car from the sideline. Okay, the reason why they only scored 3 points in that Super Bowl against the Patriots is because the Patriots wouldn't show their coverage until there were less than 15 seconds left on the play clock. So, Jared Goff would be like, oh no, I don't know what to do now. And then they scored 3 points. Okay, Jared Goff didn't know what to do because Coach McVay, who, again, might be the best coach in the NFL, didn't develop him to know how to do that. Jared Goff goes to Detroit, starts playing for Ben Johnson. Bada bing, bada boom. He's the 10th-ish best quarterback in the NFL. Okay, the reason, though, why Sean McVay might be the best coach in the NFL is because he wins. And that is what the best coaches in any sport do. They win. That is the ultimate goal for any coach or player. When things look good for the Colts, they win games. Their magic number is 20 points. If they can get to 20 points, the Colts normally win. Their problem is when things don't go their way. The Colts are 3-17 in games where they score less than 20 points under Shane Steichen. That means 17 of his 26 losses have come when they've scored less than 20 points. To his credit, they're 22-9 when they score more than 20 points under Shane Steichen. That is a winning percentage of 71% when the Colts score 20 points or more. The problem is that their winning percentage plummets to 15% when they score less than 20 points. Okay, when the offense doesn't score, the Colts do not win. Now, that is not entirely a Shane Steichen thing. When he has his starting quarterback, the Colts score points. In 11 of the 12 games that Daniel Jones started and finished last year, the Colts scored 20 points in all of them, except one, and they went 8-4 in that stretch. After Daniel Jones got hurt and the Colts turned to Riley Leonard and Phillip Rivers, the Colts only scored 20 points in 2 of their remaining 5 games. My point here is this. It's hard to score 20 points in the NFL when you don't have a good quarterback. Coach Steichen's first 2 years in the NFL, he mainly had Anthony Richardson, Gardner Minshew, and Joe Flacco as his starting quarterbacks. All 3 of those guys are backups now. Running an elite offense with that group of quarterbacks is like trying to win an F1 race while using a minivan. It's just not going to happen. Is it possible? Sure. Just very, very difficult to do. But that's not an excuse. They have to find a way because there are going to be times where the offense doesn't have it rolling, even when Daniel Jones is the starting quarterback. Carly Gordon spoke to the media earlier today and had an awesome quote that makes me feel like she's going to do just fine as the Indianapolis Colts owner. Listen to her here talk about the Colts phrase for this upcoming season.
So I just wanted to start by sharing something that I spoke to the team about on Tuesday. And that was, as we reflected on last season, this one phrase just kept coming to my mind, and that was find a way. And so that was the mantra that we settled on kind of for this season. And we came to find a way because we thought about what are the qualities that successful people have. And those qualities are consistency. Those qualities are resilience in the face of adversity. And those qualities, most importantly, are a mental toughness and a find a way mindset. And I know and believe that on our roster and in our organization, we have everything we need this year to get where we need to go.
Carly Gordon, Colts owner right there, talking about this new find a way mindset that is going to be an important part of the Colts season. That is their phrase of the year. If Dan was on this show right now, and I love Dan so much, I don't know what he would say because he's Dan. I don't think anyone ever knew what he was going to say. But one of the biggest things that I learned sitting across from Dan Dockich for 2 years was the importance of toughness in your culture. And in that clip, you heard her talk about consistency, which is important. You heard her talk about resiliency. And you heard her talk specifically about mental toughness. That is something that you have to have in every single sport. And that is something that you have to have when your offense scores less than 20 points. Whether it's mental toughness from your offense to find a freaking way to score, an extra touchdown, or to find a way to grind out a 50-yard drive against a tough Houston Texans defense just so you can put 3 points on the board. Whether it's mental toughness from your defense to hold firm and stand strong when the offense goes 3 and out for the 3rd time in a row. It's something that you have to have. And when you look through the Colts and their schedule and their losses, look, the majority of games in the NFL are one-score games, okay? Like, that is why the league is so good and so entertaining. But when the Colts score less than 20 points, it's usually not a one-score game. For example, last year, they scored less than 20 points on the road against the Jaguars and lost 36-19. Not great. You have to have – that's the game where Daniel Jones got hurt. And, yeah, that sucks, but you have to have the mental toughness to move on, pick up from where you left off, and find a way to compete and find a way to win. Okay, go back 2 years ago when they hosted the Lions at home and they lost 24-6. Or 2 years ago when they went on the road to Denver and they lost 31-13. Playoff hopes on the line. Jonathan Taylor drops the football before crossing the goal line. Everything was going well. And then that happened. And they just crumbled like a house of cards. It is in those moments where you have to find a way and you have to be resilient and you have to show a mental toughness to be able to push through that and still find a way to win, even when things aren't going your way. That is what the Indianapolis Colts need this year more than anything else. They have to find a way to keep going and find a way to win when things aren't going their way. Something that, they've only done 3 times in, 20 in 20, opportunities. 3 and 17 when they score less than 20 points. Okay? When you can't score points, you have to rely on your defense. The Colts defensive personnel hasn't been good the majority of the time that Shane Steichen has been the head coach in Indianapolis. Okay? He also had to have Gus Bradley as his defensive coordinator as well for 2 years. But you got to have the mental toughness to power through having Gus Bradley as your defensive coordinator. Okay? It's like trying to put up a house or trying to put out a house fire with a leaky garden hose. You're running backup caliber quarterbacks onto the field alongside defenses that simply lack talent. That's changing this year because, one, there's a lot of belief in Daniel Jones, even if I'm not one of those people. This is a defense that should be able to keep the Colts in games if they're healthy because of how good this secondary is. By the way, C.J. Allen is back at practice today. He's off the PUP list. So for once in the Colts' lifetime, day-to-day means day-to-day. So there you go. That's good. Okay, but because this secondary is so good and every offense in the NFL wants to throw the football, they're going to have a chance to be able to stand firm in some of these lower-scoring games because it seems like every team in the NFL is going out and hiring coaches who know how to throw the football. The Colts defense, no matter how many questions we have about it, should be good at keeping teams from throwing the football. That alone should give the Colts an opportunity to stay in games when their offense doesn't have it rolling. Think of a great defense like a giant safety net. When the offense trips up and drops the ball, the defense is what keeps you from crashing straight to the bottom. It's part of why the Seahawks won the Super Bowl last year because their defense was awesome and their offense could score 13 points and they still had a chance to win. Or their offense could score 18 points like they did at home against the Colts, and they can still win because their defense can hold you down. Okay, Lou Anarumo is in year 2 with the Indianapolis Colts. That, in addition to the improved personnel, should hopefully lead to some improvements from the Colts defense. Familiarity with the scheme is important on both sides of the ball. The Colts have also gone out and added more players that fit what he wants to do as well. They've gotten younger, and they've gotten more athletic on defense. C.J. Allen and Justin Wally headline that idea by replacing Zaire Franklin and Kenny Moore. This defense should be better, and that should lead to more competitive games when the Colts can't find a way to score 20 points. Now, I don't want to let Coach Steichen off the hook when it comes to the Colts' inability to win ugly with him as the head coach, because ultimately, he's the head coach. The responsibility falls on him, whether it's the offense or the defense. Here's my thing. When you're an offensive-minded head coach, you have to find a way to score 20 points. When you go back and you look at the Colts' schedule last year, that, you could argue, was the difference between them making and missing the playoffs last year. They lost 20-16 in Daniel Jones' final start of the year because they couldn't find one more touchdown. Again, that was with Daniel Jones on the field. Instead, he was, 14 of 27 passing in that game. So there's that game. They lost to Seattle 18-16. I understand that Phillip Rivers was playing, but if you find one more score, if you find one more field goal, or you turn one of those field goals in the red zone into a touchdown, then there's a decent chance you win that game. They lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars at home last year. Again, with Phillip Rivers, they lost 23-17. That is a one-possession game. One more touchdown, potentially, changes the outcome of that game. So, yes, the Colts are better equipped to win ugly, low-scoring games this year because their defensive personnel is better. Okay, they finally have a defense capable of winning a mud fight, which is important because the Houston Texans are going to try to turn every game into a mud fight this year. Robert Saleh in Nashville with the Titans, he's going to try and turn games into a mud fight because their offense isn't very prolific. So that's at least 4 games right there where you're going to be in it for a while against 2 of the better defensive-minded head coaches in the NFL. In those games, Shane Steichen, even when the game is a heavyweight fight where you're, not really throwing punches, you're both just kind of like staring at each other, okay? Shane Steichen still has to find a way in those games to grind out a few extra points and find a way to win, okay? Because ultimately, it is tough to ask NFL defenses playing against NFL offenses to hold them under 20 points. Okay, Coach Steichen's offenses have to be better in ugly games, especially now that they actually have the defense to win some of those. That could be the difference between them making and missing the playoffs for, the 4th year in a row under Colts head coach Shane Steichen. We got a lot to get to today. Keenan Allen is not needed here in Indianapolis. I'm seeing all this stuff because the Colts went out and signed Liam Clifford, an undrafted free agent out of Penn State. And they worked out Chase Claypool, and everyone's like, just go sign a wide receiver already. The Colts don't need one. I'll tell you why in 3 minutes.
it's in today's sports world. It's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
The Colts making big moves so far during training camp. They signed a running back today. You know, we'll see how long he sticks around for. The Colts are also adding a wide receiver to the bunch. They worked out 28-year-old Chase Claypool. And then yesterday, they also signed undrafted free agent Liam Clifford out of Penn State. Played 4 years at Penn State, so he's probably friends with Tyler Warren. And I'll be honest, his numbers are pretty underwhelming given the numbers of games that he played. I won't read them to you because you probably do not care. You probably care about, why haven't the Colts signed Keenan Allen yet? Welcome into the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in. YouTube, X, the Indy Sports Ticket app, or 1430 AM. The majority of people saw this undrafted free agent signing from the Colts, and they freaked out. You all seem to be asking the same question. Why not just sign Keenan Allen? Colts clearly need a wide receiver. Why not just sign Keenan Allen? I don't think that's true. Michael Pittman is incredibly replaceable. Think about what his role was for the Indianapolis Colts last year. His receptions mostly came 5 to 10 yards down the field, and he's not a yards after the catch threat or a yak threat, as the kids would say. Okay, he averaged 3.2 yards after the catch per reception. He broke 3 tackles all year last year. I would say that's pretty replaceable. He averaged 9.8 yards per reception last year. That means he was, on average, catching the football 6.6 yards down the field. That's not very good. He wasn't a red zone threat. Again, he wasn't a yak threat, and he wasn't a deep threat. You normally want your leading receiver to be one of those 3 things. He wasn't any of them. The reality of Michael Pittman last year was he was a reliable target 5 to 10 yards down the field, even though he posted his highest drop percentage of his career last year. That's all he was. Expecting him to turn those short receptions into explosive plays was like buying a beige commuter sedan and expecting it to win the 500. It just wasn't going to happen. Michael Pittman averaged 5 receptions and 46 receiving yards per game. Not exactly Marvin Harrison numbers. 5 receptions for 46 receiving yards a game. That's not hard to find. It's not like he was some big red zone threat either. The most receiving touchdowns he had in a single season was 7. That's less than half a receiving touchdown per game. He didn't bring that much production to the Colts. He was another piece on a lot of mediocre Colts teams that weren't making the playoffs. I promise you, he is replaceable. The Colts don't need Keenan Allen or Stephon Diggs to replace 5 receptions for 46 receiving yards a game. Ashton Dulin can do that. Nick Westbrook-Akine can do that. Okay, that receiving room is just fine. Okay, again, you can find 5 receptions for 46 yards per game with no after-the-catch juice in a lot of places. Speaking of juice, if you think the Colts need Keenan Allen, you need to drink some settle-down juice. Okay, let's just settle down on this a little bit. Ashton Dulin or Nick Westbrook-Akine can give you similar production to what Michael Pittman gave you last year, especially when you know that the Colts are going to spread some of those opportunities to Tyler Warren, Josh Downs, and Alec Pierce. Bringing in a high-priced veteran like Keenan Allen to replace Michael Pittman's 46 yards a game is like ordering a commercial wrecking ball just to hire a picture frame. It's a massive over-engineering for a basic job. Okay, I know people are clamoring for the Colts to find a new receiver because new receivers are sexier than guys that played Division II football, have been career special teamers, and occasionally play well at receiver during their time with the Colts. That's Ashton Dulin, for those who don't know who I am referencing. I think the people that think that Michael Pittman needs to be replaced are suffering from Chris Ballarditis. Michael Pittman has been the best receiver on the Colts for the last 6 years because Chris Ballard hasn't brought you a better one. So now, because it's all you've known for the last 6 years, you think he needs to be replaced by a guy like Keenan Allen or Stephon Diggs. Thinking Michael Pittman is irreplaceable because he was the Colts' best receiver is like standing in a blizzard and being convinced that room temperature tap water is like a tropical delicacy. Okay, it only looks amazing because you've been starving for high-end talent for 6 years. Okay, but when you really look at it, he wasn't productive. Over his 6 years here, he had 2,000-yard seasons, and he had one season with 100 receptions. He wasn't consistently elite. He was just the best receiver on a mediocre team that couldn't make the playoffs. Panicking over losing Pittman's production is like stressing over a broken toaster when you've already got, a fully stocked bakery in the kitchen. Okay, he's not even one of the 25 best receivers in football. The Colts are going to be just fine without him, and they don't need to bring in a Keenan Allen or a Stephon Diggs to replace him. There's not that much production to replace. The Colts should save their money and spend it on a guy who can raise their floor and ceiling more than a Keenan Allen or a Stephon Diggs can. Their wide receiver room doesn't need another guy. They have everything that they need in that room already. Okay, it's like a mechanic who already has a packed toolbox but keeps shopping for another set of wrenches. You don't need any more wrenches. You need like a power drill. Okay? Here is Colts offensive coordinator Jim Bob Cooter, a name that we love here on this show, talking about the guys that they already have in this wide receiver room.
Yeah, the whole picture, putting that thing together is a little bit theoretical at this point. We obviously know our guys pretty well, but training camp's a fresh start for a lot of guys to get a bunch of reps and doing a bunch of things and sort of define who they're going to be and who our offense is going to be for the 2026 season. So we obviously have a rich backstory with Alec Pierce. We kind of think we know what he can do and how he can help us and what he's working on in his game. And excited for him to get back when the time is right and get back going. But it's opportunities for these other guys. So we can hopefully evaluate the whole group as a coaching staff and have a good idea for what that thing can look like and should look like as we head into the regular season, which is 6 weeks away. We got a lot of time. There's so many reps the guys are going to get versus press coverage, zone coverage, off coverage, running different routes from different positions that we hope to have a great feel for our wide receiver room by that point and try to deploy them in the best way to help our team win games.
Colts offensive coordinator Jim Bob Cooter right there. This wide receiver room doesn't need another guy. Again. Also, 6 weeks isn't that much time. Like, yes, a lot of reps will be had in those hour-long practices, but we're going to blink, and the 6 weeks is going to be over, and we're going to be talking Colts-Ravens week 1. Okay, the Colts know what they have in that room, and they should feel good about it. At a minimum, Alec Pierce is going to continue to be one of the best field stretchers in the NFL. Okay, he is their deep threat cheat code, blowing the lid off defenses like a pressure cooker. Okay, Josh Downs is going to continue to get separation the way he has his entire career. He moves like a sports car, weaving in and out of heavy traffic, or he moves like my car today through heavy traffic. There was some big wreck on 65. Hopefully whoever was in it is okay. Tyler Warren is going to continue to be a beast for the Indianapolis Colts. Okay. By the way, that is your Michael Pittman replacement. It's Tyler Warren. He's going to catch the football over the middle of the field, 5 to 10 yards from the line of scrimmage, sometimes deeper, which is cool. The difference is he's a yards after the catch threat because he's so big and hard to bring down. Okay, trying to tackle him in the open field is like trying to stop a runaway freight train with a stop sign. You're going to need a little more force than that. He's also 6'6", so he's more of a red zone threat than Michael Pittman Jr. Okay, the core of the Colts passing attack the last few years has been centered around 3 guys, and everyone else was just an add-on. It was centered around Michael Pittman Jr., Josh Downs, and Alec Pierce. 2023 was the first season they had all 3 guys on the roster. They led the Colts in receptions and receiving yards. All 3 of them were top 3 in both categories. In 2024, those 3 guys, Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, and Josh Downs, led the Colts in receptions and receiving yards. Last year, there was a disruption in all of that because Tyler Warren showed up. He was second on the Colts in receiving yards, and he was second on the Colts in receptions. Okay? What the Colts need and their third receiver is a guy who can block on the perimeter because that's something that Michael Pittman Jr. was good at doing in terms of catching the football over the middle of the field. Tyler Warren can do that. I promise you. Okay? Nick Westbrook-Akina has a reputation of being a good run-blocking wide receiver. Ashton Dulin has the size and physicality to block on the edge as well as Michael Pittman did. Both of those guys have also proven that they can catch the football when called upon. That wide receiver 3 spot is to decide who the 4th priority is going to be when the Colts throw the football. Super Bowls are not won by who your 4th best pass catcher is. No one cares who the Rams' 4th best pass catcher is. They care about Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, Tyler Higbee. That's who they care about. It's like, worrying about who your 4th wide receiver is going to be is like agonizing over the quality of the spare tire while your engine is overheating. If the Colts brought in Keenan Allen, he would be their 4th best pass catcher. Is that nice? Sure. But the Colts don't need to worry about that when they have bigger issues at edge rusher. They could also probably use a little more depth on the offensive line if they wanted to address that. They could use another secondary player as well because of the injury history with Trevarius Ward. They could bring in another safety because they want someone there with experience over Halsey and Wohler. The Colts don't need another receiver when they clearly have bigger needs elsewhere. I get it. New wide receivers are sexy. New wide receivers are fun. All of those things. Okay? I get it. It's fun. But I don't care about fun. I want the Colts to win. And them adding a 4th pass catcher isn't going to help them win. When you look at Shane Steichen's time in Indianapolis, he doesn't need a 4th pass catcher. He just needs 3. And the Colts already have them. Okay? Chris, what do you think about that? What do you think of this idea of them bringing in, a Keenan Allen or someone else?
I'm actually all for it. I think it would be good insurance to have. I really don't think Stephon Diggs will come to Indy. He's probably going to look more for a championship competitor as opposed to a paycheck. Keenan Allen, I could definitely see him coming here because he's towards the end of his career, still wants to play. I could see them bringing him in as some extra insurance because there's no guarantee that, you got Ashton Dulin and he's a solid 3, but if you could make it just a little bit better, give yourself a little bit more confidence, I think they would do it in a heartbeat.
What about
not to mention the depth too?
What about their other needs at edge and probably a swing tackle and maybe someone behind Halsey and Wohler?
I'm not dismissing that those are important either. But I think with the way Chris Ballard runs the team, I mean, it's been in my news thing every day that they're shopping veteran wide receivers. There's all obviously something that we may already be missing as far as what's happening in training camp that we don't see. So I think that will get addressed whenever the time is right. In our eyes, it should be sooner than later, but they clearly want to fix the wide receiver room because they think there's an issue somewhere.
I don't know. They signed an undrafted free agent. They worked out Chase Claypool. I don't know. I thought it was more revealing when they worked out the former Buccaneer safety and they reached out to Terry and Arnold.
Right. And it's something that they could be doing right under our noses and we not know about it. I mean, we pretty have a pretty good idea of the spots that they would like to fill or the ideas that they might have, but that could be a quiet progress that we don't know about yet. That doesn't mean that they're not working on it at all. This one just has some more known names to it, so it's a little bit more flashy, I guess. Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Speaking of flashy, Alec Pierce making plays over the top. I'm so intrigued to see how his season is going to go. The Colts made him the 14th highest paid receiver in the NFL. When you look at average salary, he's going to have a bigger role this year. Can he have it when he's, been rehabbing all summer long? We've got audio of Colts offensive coordinator Jim Bob Cooter talking about Alec Pierce's role expanding in 3 minutes.
may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Yeah. The digital guy on X. That's right. There's a chat on X as well. If you're watching on X, there's a way to do that. I don't know how, but you can. The digital guy is saying Alec Pierce will be great as wide receiver one. Downs and Doolin will be good compliments. The tight ends need to step up. I think Tyler Warren's going to be just fine this year. Probably lead the Colts in receptions and receiving yards if I had to take a guess. And when it comes to the wide receiver room, Alec Pierce, 14th highest paid receiver in the NFL. He's going to have a larger role this year, and I'm just very intrigued to see how it goes. Welcome into the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in. YouTube, X, the Indy Sports Ticket app, or 1430 AM if you're driving around the Indianapolis area. You don't make a guy the highest, the 14th highest paid receiver in the NFL if you're not going to expand his role. Just like how you don't buy a fully loaded luxury sports car just to leave it parked in the driveway. You pay that kind of money to hit top speed on every stretch of the highway. Okay, here is Colts offensive coordinator Jim Bob Cooter talking about Alec Pierce and how his role will expand this year.
Potentially, it all ties into the overall structure of the receiver corps, like we just talked about. Who's out there, who's sort of executing each role within plays. We'd like guys to be threats, short, intermediate, and deep. Really, as many of those guys as we can have on the field, the better for our offense. So Alec has made a ton of plays downfield, and that has earned him more opportunities at that as he's gone. I would look for his intermediate and underneath opportunities to increase as we go. And I think as that pops up, sometimes on some of those plays there are deeper routes, and those deeper opportunities show up for somebody else. And Downs has shown he can make a bunch of plays down the field over the years. Some years are different than others with the opportunities that he's gotten, but he's out here working like crazy, and he's earned his opportunity to go make some of those plays, and I'm pretty confident he will.
Colts offensive coordinator Jim Bob Cooter right there talking about Alec Pierce. And in that clip, Coach JBC, because I don't feel like saying his full name every time, specifically mentions that Alec Pierce's intermediate and underneath opportunities should increase this year. And they absolutely should, given how much money this guy is making. Paying top dollar for a guy who only runs deep posts is like buying a multi-tool knife and only using the toothpick. Okay, he's got to do more for them this year. And I hope that he can. I want him to be great. But he's coming off of this ankle surgery, and trying to expand your route tree while coming off rehab is like trying to learn how to play concert piano with your hands still in a cast. There's only so much you can do. Okay, so I hope that he's ready for the increased workload. He's still not off the PUP list. Maybe it happens early this next week, but he's the guy for the Colts who has to be awesome this year. He has to be their number one wide receiver. I really like Josh Downs, but, I mean, when we look at the history of the NFL, you want to look at guys on their team who have been the best wide receiver on their team, and they're standing under 5'10". It's Tyreek Hill. And that's really it, at least that I can remember. Okay, so Alec Pierce needs to be great this year. Now, the exciting thing about this for the Colts is that if Alec Pierce can expand his route tree and he can win underneath and he can win in the intermediate and he can win over the top, it means it'll open up opportunities for other guys to do a little bit more. Ashton Doolin can fly. He's a guy who can take the top off of a defense. Deion Burks and Josh Downs both have the speed to take the top off of a defense if they need to. Tyler Warren, who can win contested catches because of his size. He's faster than most linebackers. He's a handful for safeties. Alec Pierce being able to win on routes underneath and on intermediate routes gives the Colts offense more variability. Last year, It wasn't hard to guess what the Colts pass catchers were going to end up doing. Defensive coordinators last year reading the Colts game plan was like reading a children's pop-up book. It's like you knew exactly what was going to jump off the page before it ever happened. Okay, Tyler Warren was going to wind up somewhere over the middle of the field, probably 10 to 15 yards down the field. Michael Pittman was going to run, like a short drag or a slant or some other short in-breaking route. Alec Pierce was going to run a deep post, a go, or a deep over. If Josh Downs was on the field, he was going to run like a short out-breaking route, maybe like a zig route or like a quick out. Maybe he would run a slant occasionally. It wasn't hard to guess what the Colts wide receivers were going to be doing. And I think part of that is because, one, all the things that I just listed, those players are good at doing. But two, Michael Pittman, I thought, had a limited skill set. Okay, relying on a receiver who can't stretch the field or create quick space is like playing chess without your rooks. You're fundamentally playing with half the board. His route tree was limited because he wasn't a guy who had the speed to win over the top. He wasn't, he didn't have like this short area quickness, route running ability that Josh Downs does that allowed him to separate underneath. He didn't really have any of that. And because of that, it limited what everyone else was able to do. Okay, the Colts now potentially, depending on if Alec Pierce improved his game or not, have a pass-catching core that can do multiple things. If Alec Pierce proves that he can do more than win over the top, which even if he can only do that, they'll be able to do some interchangeable stuff, I think, with Warren, Doolin, and Downs. But if he can, then I think that this Colts offense is going to be better for that reason alone, no matter who the third wide receiver winds up being. Okay, so I'm very intrigued to kind of see how this whole experiment goes. I think it's going to be a really fun year for this Colts offense if, and it feels like a big if they're able to stay healthy. So Alec Pierce got to be good. We'll see if he's able to be good or not. Keenan Allen, not a Colt. Colts just deciding to go out and sign, an undrafted free agent and work out Chase Claypool instead. We'll do Funless Friday coming up here at 1 o'clock. And my Funless Friday for today is players I would sign before I would sign Keenan Allen. And I've got 9 guys who came off the top of my head before I got to Keenan Allen. So I'll give you that list coming up here at 1 o'clock. Chris, is there a guy on the Colts team this year, just in general, who's moving into a new role of some sort that you're excited about seeing how they kind of step into that this year?
Not off the top of my head. I'd have to think about that one. Let me get you a good answer here in a few because I'm not ready for that.
Oh, okay.
Off the top of my head.
Fair enough.
Why don't you answer it first and then you come back to me?
The answer is Alec Pierce. Just because he's going to be entrusted to do so much more. Like, again, last year it was a lot of asking him to win over the top, which is something he was really good at. It's something that he should be good at for the next several years. That's why the Colts decided to fork out all of this money to him. But again, when you look at, I did this segment a couple months ago, but when you look at the receivers making around the amount of money that Alec Pierce is, it's guys like T. Higgins and CeeDee Lamb. And both of those guys are capable of winning over the top, but they can also do more than that. George Pickens is a really good red zone threat. So is T. Higgins. George Pickens is a guy who can win quickly on slant routes. T. Higgins is a guy who runs intermediate routes well. So I'm intrigued to see how the Colts do decide to use him this year.
Yeah, I don't know about a new position, but we could say new team. Nick Westbrook-Akine, I think, could prove himself to be better than he has been on previous squads, and not just go out there and be a warm body. Because if that's going to be the case, then, yeah, let's bring in Keenan Allen. But if he's going to do something, that's probably where my expectations would go with Mr. Nick right there.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy because when you look at his time in Tennessee, because again, he was in Miami last year, only had 11 receptions, but he does have 1 year in Tennessee where he has like 50 receptions for around 500 yards and 9 touchdowns on that season, and so he's a guy who could be the third option. We probably don't talk about him as much as we should, but I think that's just because I personally really like Doolin and expect him to win that wide receiver 3 role. Just because the thing that I really like about Doolin is like he's got the juice. I know I say juice a lot on this show, but he does. Like go back 2 or 3 years ago, there's a play where he runs this like in-breaking route, and Anthony Richardson just rips it to him. And he catches it, and he turns upfield, and he leaves everyone in the dust. And the Colts just don't really have guys like that. Now, maybe Westbrook-Akina can do that as well, but I like the juice that Ashton Doolin brings.
There you go. I would probably also say in the same breath as that Colby Wooden, too. I mean, you want him to come over and be at least as good as Zaire Franklin. Like, I know that you don't think very highly of him, but I thought he was good. I liked Zaire Franklin. So, in my eyes, those were kind of some big shoes to fill. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he'll do over here.
Yeah, the Colby Wooden thing is interesting just because of the unknown stuff with DeForest Buckner. Like, there's a world where Colby Wooden is on the field a lot, and the Colts are asking quite a bit out of him. My concern for him is, like, can he just get after the passer? Like, half a sack last year with the Packers. I think he's got like 3.5 sacks in his career total. He's been in the league for 4 years now, if I can remember correctly. So if he can just be an average pass rusher as a defensive tackle, I think that's a win. With that being said, in terms of defending the run, good luck finding, well, you can find better guys. But that is something that he is very good at doing, and the idea of having him and Grover Stewart in the middle of the defense when teams try to run the football, I do think that that's going to be a really nice combination for the Colts this year, just depending on how it goes. So he's also a younger player, too. I think that was one of the things, to Chris Ballard's credit, that I liked about the trade. Like, Zaire Franklin's been around for a minute. Colby Wooden's 25, if I remember correctly, like 25 to 26. So he's a guy who's going to be here for hopefully multiple years and be a guy who contributes, not just this year, but for the next, 3 or 4 years as well. So we'll see how that goes. It is Friday, which means we got to get to Fun List Friday. We'll do that coming up at 1 o'clock. After that, we'll probably talk Coach Cignetti and the time he had at Big Ten Media Days. We'll have Jim Coyle join the show at 1:20 to talk more about Coach Cignetti at Big Ten Media Days. We're giving away Holiday World tickets probably after Jim Coyle. I don't think we're going to do trivia today. There's just so much Colt stuff and Indiana stuff for us to get to that we're mainly going to focus on that. So we'll give away Holiday World tickets 1:40, 1:45-ish, 317-228-1430. That's the number for when that time comes. Funless Friday on a beautiful Friday coming up at 1 o'clock. But first, Chris has your sports update.
Thanks, Jonathan. Here's what's trending this hour. Of course, today we've been talking about it all day. Family Day at Colts training camp up in Westfield. Chris Ballard announced the signing of undrafted free agent running back Roydell Williams out of Florida State. Rumors also continue that Ballard is keeping close tabs on the veteran market, with Alec Pierce sidelined for another week on the PUP list. They did, however, also sign undrafted free agent Liam Clifford for the wide receiver room. So there you go. Indiana Fever looking to extend their season best 4-game winning streak tonight against the Portland Fire, 10 o'clock Eastern. For that tip-off, you can find that one on the Ion Network. And, of course, we're going to be talking about it here shortly. IU head coach Curt Cignetti closed yesterday's Big Ten Media Days with a flurry of jokes and a process-driven metrics. Indiana Athletics sent an email changing its long-standing tradition for student football season passes as well. Students will now only be able to select up to 5 of 8 home games at Memorial Stadium this upcoming season. That's what's trending this hour. More of the Real Jonathan Smith Show in 4 minutes on Indy Sports Ticket 1430.
Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Hour number 2 of the real Jonathan Smith Show is getting underway. We got good old Jim Coyle coming up at 1:20. We'll talk IU football. Coach Cignetti at Media Days yesterday as well. Big talk in the world of the Colts. They signed Liam Clifford, a undrafted free agent wide receiver. People are like, they should go sign Keenan Allen. I disagree. I think they'll be just fine with Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, and Tyler Warren playing for them this season. So for Funless Friday, I decided to talk about players that I would sign before Keenan Allen. For those who are new, we do this every Friday. It's a pretty random list. Sometimes it's sports related. Sometimes it's not. But with it being the start of football season, you know we had to do something about the Colts. Let's get into Funless Friday.
It's Funless Friday!
Next summer, I need to do a Funless Friday of our best intro music and intros.
We could have an intro countdown.
What do you mean?
Like a I don't know. Top 10 favorite intros.
Oh, okay,
Countdown.
yeah.
Like, this is my 10th favorite.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean?
So
Okay.
we do it for Top 10 Tuesday. One way or the other.
There you go.
We need 10 intros then. We don't have that many intros.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. So on today's Funless Friday, I've only got a list of 9, which I actually think is pretty substantial given the topic. Players I would sign before Keenan Allen. This is in no particular order. Taylor Decker. You're probably asking yourself, who is Taylor Decker? Taylor Decker is a 10-year NFL veteran. Most recently played offensive tackle for the Detroit Lions, if I remember correctly. But when you look at this Colts offensive line this year, first, it's a good offensive line, especially from right guard when you move left. So that's Matt Gonsalves, Tanner Bortolini, Quentin Nelson, and then Bernard Ryman. The question for the Colts this year is going to be at right tackle with Jalen Travis, former 4th-round pick of the Indianapolis Colts. Played a little bit last year, held up pretty well when he was called upon. But Taylor Decker's a guy who's been around, done it longer. In case the Colts need some form of a backup offensive tackle, maybe Jalen Travis gets out there and he just can't do it for one reason or another, you would then have a guy like Taylor Decker waiting in the wings to step in and play offensive tackle for you. I know that Jalen Farmer is the preseason assumed rookie who's the 6th offensive lineman. That guy is an offensive guard. That's what he is. Okay? He was drafted to play guard. I don't think that they're going to want to kick him out to tackle. Maybe they do that a little bit during training camp because when you look at his build, he does look more like an offensive tackle than he does an offensive guard. But grabbing an offensive tackle in free agency here before the season starts, I would prefer them do that before they went and got Keenan Allen. So that is offensive tackle Taylor Decker. I would say the same thing about offensive tackle Cam Robinson as well. C.J. Allen, by the way, Cam Robinson, second guy on my list. Third guy on my list here, linebacker Bobby Wagner, older player, but still a good one. I know that everyone's just like, yeah, C.J. Allen's going to be awesome. I think he's going to be good. But rookies are unknown commodities. I also don't love the depth behind him. If he doesn't work out, then you're looking at Austin Jakey. I know that's wrong, but you're looking at him. And then you're looking at Wes Weeks, who's an undrafted free agent. Maybe you go to Bryce Betcher, 4th-round pick out of Oregon, plays linebacker as well, but kind of projects as more of a coverage linebacker as opposed to a thumper who's going to get downhill and plug the run. Jalen Carlisle would be one of the guys, too, that they'd probably turn to if C.J. Allen doesn't work out. He wasn't very good for the Colts last year. So there's some concerns there. I think a guy like Bobby Wagner to have waiting in the wings, just in case, I think that's a better investment than going and getting Keenan Allen when you already have Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, and Tyler Warren to carry your receiving load. Fourth guy on my list is offensive guard Mekhi Becton, former 10th overall pick, if I remember correctly, of the New York Jets. Came into the league as a tackle, got moved inside, played offensive guard for the Philadelphia Eagles a couple of years ago when they won the Super Bowl. The reason why I like Becton is he's a guy who can play multiple positions. He can play guard or he can play tackle. He's a true sixth offensive lineman that you can kind of move all over the place. Okay, so having a guy who's got a little bit more versatility, I think would be nice because you're going to have injuries on your offensive line this year. Maybe Jalen Farmer's not ready yet. You can bring in a guy like Mekhi Becton, who is certainly a backup caliber offensive lineman who can fill multiple roles for you if you need him to. So he is fourth. Number 5 is cornerback Trevon Diggs, won Defensive Player of the Year a couple years ago. He had like 10 interceptions in a season, if I can remember that correctly. Brother of Stephon Diggs was, I guess, not re-signed by the Dallas Cowboys. The reason why I like Trevon Diggs is he's just a playmaker. Like, look, there's a reason why the Cowboys let him go. Just like all of these free agents, there's a reason why they're free agents. But with Diggs, you get a guy who's capable of swinging a football game in your direction if you need him to. Okay, this is a guy who's had multiple seasons with 14 passes defended or more. He had 21 passes defended a few years ago. Okay, this is a guy who can show up for you and really produce. He's a guy who I think can play man. He can play zone, so he's versatile. And look, Travarius Ward has talked quite a bit throughout his media time this year about how last year he was pretty close to retiring, right? And he's probably another concussion away from seriously having to consider hanging it up again. And so you need another corner waiting in the wings. Maybe that's going to be Trevon Diggs. Maybe they really like, I think it's Jonathan Edwards, who would be the backup cornerback to Justin Wally, because they would probably move him outside if something happened to Ward. So having another corner, I think, just kind of waiting in the wings in case something happens. And I don't like thinking this way, but I think that you have to. Given the history of Travarius Ward, he's probably going to get hurt at some point this season, because when you look through his history, that's just kind of who he is ever since the back end of his career with the 49ers. He remained pretty healthy when he was originally drafted by the Chiefs, but his last year in San Francisco, he only played 12 games. Last year with the Colts, he only played in 7 games. So having another corner like a Trevon Diggs, I think, would be very beneficial for the Indianapolis Colts. More beneficial than having a guy like Keenan Allen. Number 6 is going to be edge rusher Jadeveon Clowney. I used to believe that there was no way that he would come to the Colts, but a couple of days ago it was reported that he visited the Cleveland Browns and is thinking about playing for them. So, look, if the Browns are on anybody's radar in terms of them wanting to go and play them, I mean, then I feel like everybody's in the mix because the Browns are terrible. I know that Jadeveon Clowney was there a few years ago. He had a nice season. Easier to be good when you have Myles Garrett opposite of you. That would obviously not be the case if he wound up in Cleveland. So maybe there is like a little slimmer of hope in there for the Colts to be able to go and sign Jadeveon Clowney. He would immediately be the second best edge rusher on this Colts team. That is something that they need more than anything else. Go get Jadeveon Clowney, see if he would be, willing enough to come here and play for the Indianapolis Colts. Number 7 is cornerback / safety Terrion Arnold. Jonathan, what about the armed robbery charges and those things? It's a great question, but I think that if you're Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen, you don't really care about that right now. I think that you're just trying to put a team on the field that would allow you to win games. You heard Carly Ursay-Gordon in her press conference. She believes that the Colts have everything that they need here in order to be able to go out and win. I think Terrion Arnold would be a guy who would come in and make this football team better immediately. He's a guy who can play nickel. He can play safety for you as well. He was a high draft pick of the Detroit Lions, and whenever he has played, he's been pretty good. So that is a guy that I would love to see the Colts go out and add. Two more for you here. They're both edge rushers, Hassan Reddick and Von Miller. Hassan Reddick would be a nice depth piece at edge rusher. I don't think he would come in and be a starter, at least not immediately. But he would just give you much needed depth at that position. Because, again, as you go through it, I think that is by far the most glaring weakness on this Colts team. Okay? It's after Latu, it's Arden Key, who's like, best year was 6.5 sacks. Jalen Tuimoloau, who didn't play last year, and Michael Clemens, who at the ripe age of 28 years old has 8.5 sacks in his career. And then after that, you're relying on Caden Curry and George Gums, 2 day 3 picks. And look, if we're seeing George Gums and Caden Curry, not a good sign for the Colts in terms of, this defense this year and their ability to get after the passer. I think a guy like Hassan Reddick would be a much better option than those two guys, and even a better option than a guy like Michael Clemens. And then finally, you've got Von Miller, who is old, been around a long time. Been around a long time. The number 2 overall pick in the 2011 NFL draft. He was 36 years old last year. Chris, would you like to guess how many sacks Von Miller had last season?
4, 6, 8, 12.
12. 9.
Okay.
He had 9 sacks last year. That guy can still rush the passer. Let me back up. He had 9 sacks and only 3 starts. He played every game last year for Washington. There's your guy, Colts. Like if you can't bring in, a Jadeveon Clowney, go get Von Miller. There's clearly still some juice in that tank. He's probably not going to start for you just because he's an older player. He's going to be 37 this year. But he's a guy who can come in. He can play on all 3 downs. He can rush the passer for you on 3rd down. And he can also, hold down the fort against the run. Like, this is a guy who can do good, meaningful things for you on the football field still. Is he going to play 80 snaps a game? No, he's probably going to be more like 30. But he can still give you some juice in those games if you go out and you sign him. It seems like he's still wanting to play football. I know Joey Bosa is another theoretical free agent, but it seems like he's done. I feel like the only place that he would go play is maybe San Francisco to play alongside his brother. But outside of that, it looks like Joey Bosa's done with football. So Von Miller, if you can't get Jadeveon Clowney, I think would be an excellent option for this Indianapolis Colts team. That's one of the edge rushers I haven't talked about quite as much just because I don't love that he's 37. But 37-year-old Von Miller is probably better than George Gums. Excuse me. Jeez, man, that's twice today. Golly. George Gums, Caden Curry, and Michael Clemens. Von Miller would easily be able to slide in and be one of your, he'd be your 2nd, 3rd, or 4th best edge rusher, which the Colts are desperately looking for right now. I know Colts fans want Keenan Allen, but they don't need him. They need any one of those guys on this list more, whether it's an offensive tackle like Taylor Decker, an offensive guard / tackle like Mekhi Becton, a linebacker and Bobby Wagner who can back up C.J. Allen in case things don't work out immediately, whether it's a corner / safety like Terrion Arnold. I know he's got all of his charges and stuff that he has to work through. But more than anything else, the Colts need an edge rusher. Clowney, Reddick, Miller, one of the 3 would do much more for the Colts' success this year compared to Keenan Allen, who would be their 4th best pass catcher behind Tyler Warren, Alec Pierce, and Josh Downs. The Colts do not need him, as cool as it would be. Also, I feel like if the Colts wanted him, he would already be here. He's got a relationship with Steichen. Steichen seems pretty vocal on the things that he wants. So we'll see. We got Jim Coyle joining the show. He's your guy for all things Indianapolis, all things IU. Does a great job covering all the sports for that university. You can hear him on ISB Radio Monday through Friday. Again, he does a great job. He will join the show coming up here at 1:20. We'll talk Indiana football. Coach Cignetti at Big Ten Media Days in 4 minutes.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Coach Cignetti, as electric behind a microphone as any college coach, whether it's Lane Kiffin, Steve Spurrier from back in the day, he lit the college football world on fire again yesterday at Big Ten Media Days. We've now got Jim Coyle from ISB Radio joining us to talk Coach Cignetti and Indiana football. Jim, what's going on? How are you doing today?
Great, brother. How are you? Congratulations on the new gig. It's been a while since we've spoken, so it seems like everything's going great for you.
Hey, look, hard to complain when this is the job, you know?
Exactly.
All right, so Coach Cignetti does Coach Cignetti things yesterday. He had some really good stuff. That was a little more serious, but I want to start with his jab at the SEC, talking about the whining and complaining thing.
Well, that's.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
I'm sorry. No, no. Go. You finish,
Okay.
please.
Here's my question. This is the one problem that I have with what he said. Why are we canceling games against Virginia last year if this is really how we feel about our conference?
Well, the funny thing is, I agree with everything. I was talking on my show about just the complaining that the SEC does. That's all they seem to do because it's all that they've been able to do. They've not been able to win on the field, so they can only complain about it and continue to push that false narrative, like saying that the SEC middle is stronger than the Big Ten, which is crap because the SEC lost in multiple bowl games to the Big Ten last year and to everybody else. But I also have talked relentlessly about why was that Virginia game canceled. They're a lower tier team in the Power Four. It didn't make sense to me, and it still doesn't. And I don't understand why. I don't understand why they canceled the Louisville game. I think they ultimately would have won that game. Although maybe that makes sense because it was the first year, they didn't know what to expect. But I agree with all of that. And at the end of the day, though, I don't really care who they play in the first 2 or 3 games because if you're going to do anything, if you're going to go anywhere, you're going to have to do what they did last year. They beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. They follow that up by destroying the face of the SEC, Alabama, in the Rose Bowl. They follow that up with a second defeat of Oregon, one of the top teams in the country. They follow that up with a defeat of Miami from the ACC. So they did all that they needed to do, and it's just an excuse that they're looking for to banter around. So I agree with what you're saying, and I understand it, but they're fine. And he didn't care. He's like, hey, just call our number, and we're going to come play.
Yeah, I look, I like him, and look, you're exactly right. Look, when you go 16-0 and you win a national title, you can say whatever you want, no matter what conference you're in. So that was my initial thought of like, all right, like let's play, like you said, Louisville, like let's play Virginia. Like I know the SEC with their new scheduling rules, they have to play a non-conference Power 4 team every year. So like I'd love to see Indiana get in the mix on that, and I'm hoping that we do here at some point because they're at the top of college football. I don't think they're going anywhere as long as Coach Cignetti is here. How good are they going to be this year? Because they've got a lot of new faces.
Well, it's hard to say. The crux to that is going to lie on how well Josh Hoover is able to perform. And he has thrown for miles of yards of the football. And more importantly, though, under Cignetti, he's able to get efficiency. He doesn't need miles of throwing the football. They need efficiency. You've got great receivers, great running backs. They just need him to manage the offense. It's what Curtis Rourke did. Curtis Rourke managed the offense, and that's all they need to get.
Joined by Jim Coyle talking Indiana football for this upcoming season. You mentioned the running backs, and I would even go back to last year. Like, I would argue, as great as Mendoza was, I thought Indiana's identity was in running the football and playing great defense. And then Mendoza just had Heisman moment after Heisman moment, it felt like, whether it was Oregon or Penn State or the game against Ohio State. How is the defense going to look this year? Because I thought that was really the calling card of IU last year.
It certainly was, and Bryant Haynes is still there, and actually they were able to maintain a high level of players. The defensive line, I'm not going to say it's better because they lost some great ones, but they also were able to maintain some great ones and add a few great ones. So that's where it's going to start and stop in the trenches. I think of Michigan, their calling card is going to be trying to run the ball. Well, that's going to be tough against this defense, but it'll be a challenge for Indiana. But how the secondary is going to be, that's a question. We'll find out. But overall, I think they're going to be tough as nails. And I can't say just as good as last year because I don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know. It's like putting out the top 25 preseason polls, which don't mean diddly do.
Absolutely. The thing that I really liked about Indiana's defense last year is like D'Angelo Pons was obviously a star. Fisher at linebacker was obviously a star. But when you looked at the defensive line, it just felt like waves of guys. Whereas like when Nick Saban was at Alabama, there were like two guys that were like, all right, like that's going to be a top 10 pick. Is that what you expect from the defensive line again this year in terms of it just being a lot of really good players, or do you think there are going to be one or two guys that jump off the screen a little bit more?
Well, last year they lost one guy, and then they lost another guy, and the replacements every time stepped up as if it was machine-like. So I'm thinking that they're going to have that same thing. It's the next man up mentality, and they've been able to maintain that. So I have no doubts, but that doesn't mean I'm right. I haven't, to be honest, I haven't been able to see as much as I'd like to. I had a pretty bad car accident in June, and I'm still dealing with that, but I keep up with it through the guys that I know that are there and reading everything that I can read. But I know what they have. I know Bryant Haynes. I know how I say he is the best defensive coordinator in the country. Of course, he won the Royals Award for being just that last year, and that hasn't changed. And coaching and having coachable players, that's a match made in heaven, and they have that match. So it's Indiana just has this way of playing. They don't play with, cockiness. They play with confidence, and they play with swagger. And they play with Brian Haynes swagger. They play with Kurt Cignetti swagger. And that is to walk tall and carry a big stick, so to speak.
Joined by Jim Coyle talking a little bit of IU football. How are you doing, by the way, after the accident?
Well, I am getting better. I feel fine. Just, the injury is pretty significant. My lower right leg. In football parlance, a serious injury to the lower right limb is what they would give. That's the information they would give us.
Okay.
But yeah, I feel fine. Still dealing with it, but that's champagne problems for the sports world.
Okay, fair enough. I think my favorite thing that Coach Cignetti said yesterday is there's like this 15 seconds where he talks about how, like, if a guy can't be on time and he's not coachable, he's just not going to be part of my program. And later he talks about how he's kind of in charge of getting rid of all of the bad apples. How much, like, when you have been able to get down there in previous years, how much of that have you seen, I guess?
Well, that's just been a fact. I mean, I don't even know why he even brings it up, because if anybody that doesn't know that has not spent any time around the football program. And even Nick Marsh, the big-time receiver transfer from Michigan State, I know back in spring camp, he came out in these, I think, golden shoes, somewhat bright golden shoes. And, yeah, those didn't last long. Let's just say that.
They did not. I remember that story coming out and people going crazy. Like, it's just cleats. It's like it's more than that.
Yeah.
There has been
It's not about you. It's not about you mentality. It's a team concept, and that's part of the magic of what Kurt Cignetti brought from day one, and that it grew. It grew within the players. They bought into that because they started to see that's real. That works. Because look at the players that they had, man. Look at where they came from. last year, how many 5-stars did they have on the entire roster? 0, a big fat 0. How many 4-stars? 7. The fact that we can remember, quote, those numbers shows you how small they were, but the teams that they beat and destroyed, different beast altogether. So it's that team concept and doing everything in the name of the team for the team. So it is how it's going to be, and it always will be. That's his magic.
Joined by Jim Coyle talking Indiana football and Coach Cignetti. So, let's get back to the SEC here. There's a lot of screenshots of the first 6 weeks of IU's schedule this year. What are some of the games outside of Ohio State that you think might be tough for IU this year?
Well, my first response to the screenshot would be I would screenshot the last 6 weeks of Indiana's games last year as a response to that. Because that's all that you need to say. I don't care who they play in the non-conference, to be honest with you. Those have always been tune-up games. Then somewhere along the line, they started changing and I get that. I don't mind having great games, but also I don't know that I want to see the big time games in weeks 1 or 2 because those teams are not ready, man. They're just not. IU's first game last year, Fernando did not throw a single touchdown pass and ended up setting the record for touchdown passes for Indiana and close for the conference last year. But that's because they're not ready. And don't let them go. Let them get to that point. And they play in a Big Ten conference that they're going to get tested all the time. They're going to play Wisconsin. They're going to play Washington. They're going to play Ohio State. They're going to play Michigan. And then when they get to the CFP, they're going to play nothing but high-end teams as well. It's just something for somebody to cry and moan about. These teams that don't make it, that don't achieve what Indiana is achieving. I think it's crap, but that's just my opinion on that. I don't want to sound like a homer because I'm not, and that drives me insane for people to think that, but it is just a fact. Dude, they finished the season beating the hell out of everybody. So that's Kurt Cignetti's response, basically.
And it's the right one. Right? It's all been settled on the field. Again, joined by Jim Coyle talking a little bit of IU football. Jim, before I let you go, did you watch any of IU basketball and their games in South America? I know that they won those games by a lot, but if you did watch, what did you kind of think?
The thing that has stood out to me is that the two of the freshmen were the leading scorers for this team. And I'm like, how in the heck, with all the talent that they brought in that is good and playing very well, Marcus Burton, Aiden Sherrill, Jaden Mustaf, how in the hell were these freshmen the leading scorers? So that has got to give Indiana basketball fans a huge boost of excitement going into the season because of that. And they weren't playing, Duke and this, that, and the other, but that's okay. They seem to be playing well together, but it's going to be interesting to see when they start playing higher end talent. Do these freshmen maintain that level of play? Or do some of the other guys step up and, become the higher scorers? Is Aiden Sherrill going to be that? Or are they just doing the perfect thing, playing their exact roles and what they should be? Are they not trying to do too much, not trying to shoot too much, not trying to take too many shots? Marcus Burton is doing his job without a doubt. So I like what I'm seeing so far.
I loved Von Carvalho. Like, that guy's going to be – I just liked the way that he played. I felt like he didn't try to do too much. Like,
Exactly.
I felt like when he got it, it was like 1, maybe 2 dribbles, and then he moved the ball. Of all the freshmen, he was my favorite. Is there a guy in particular from that freshman group that you really enjoyed watching?
Von Carvalho just stood out, just like what you just said. Von Carvalho stood out, and of course, Prince Alexander Moody as well. But Von Carvalho, what a ceiling, what an upside, or a lack of ceiling. We don't know what his ceiling is. So what an upside that they both have. It's amazing to see and amazing to know that talent is there and is only going to get better.
That's the hope. I'm excited for IU football. Indiana basketball should be a lot of fun this year as well. Hopefully, there's not any booing at Assembly Hall again this year. But it'll be a lot of fun. Jim, thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we can get you on a few more times throughout the season.
Available to you anytime, brother. Sorry for any outside noise I was transporting at the time. It just did work out time-wise.
Yeah, all good. Thanks for your time, Jim.
Appreciate you.
You got it. That is Jim Coyle. You can check him out on X at Jim Coyle ISB. You can hear him on ISB Radio as well. We've got audio from Coach Cignetti's time at Big Ten Media Days. Again, he's got everybody up in arms. I've got my thoughts on it as well. We'll give you the audio and my thoughts in 3 minutes.
If it's in today's sports world, it's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Big thanks to Jim Coyle. That last segment joining me, talking a little bit of Indiana football. Coach Cignetti getting everybody all riled up as he does. I love the way he talks. He is direct. You know exactly what Coach Cignetti is thinking, and he is not afraid to poke the bear and talk crap and do all those things. Welcome into the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in. YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, X _ Jonathan Smith. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM if you're driving around the Indianapolis area. Coach Cignetti, he's great. I love him, man. And look, when you win a national title and you revive a program the way he revived the losingest program in the history of college football in Indiana, you get the right to talk for eternity. Coach Cignetti could lose every game for the remainder of his coaching career, and guess what? He would still have a pass to talk as much crap as he wants. Okay? That's what he did at Big Ten Media Days yesterday. He took some shots at the SEC. Listen to this from Indiana head coach Curt Cignetti.
The Big Ten is the best league in football, and a lot of really good football teams. It's hard to win on the road. Very physical football teams, very well coached. It definitely prepares you for the playoffs. There's no doubt about it. The numbers speak for themselves. I mean, we don't run a hype machine up here in the Midwest. We believe everything's earned, not given. And when we fall short, we say we fell short. We don't cry a river, whine, and complain. All right? And that's why we're the best.
Coach Cignetti right there talking about the Big Ten. He didn't mention the SEC specifically, but we all know who he's talking about. The funny thing about the quote is there's two funny things about this quote. One, when he gives the quote, they have up this graphic of Indiana's, quote, notable games. One of the teams listed is Purdue, who wasn't very good last year. Okay? So that part of it, funny. I also found it funny that he says the Midwest. You know, we don't complain about things in the Midwest. South Bend, Indiana is in the Midwest, and all Notre Dame fans did last year was complain after being left out of the college football playoffs. So next time, let's just say Big Ten going forward. Let's also not act like there wasn't whining and complaining when everyone found out that Michigan cheated a couple of years ago. But hey, in terms of Indiana, they don't whine, they don't complain, they just go win games. Here's my thing. I'm in the minority on this. The top of the Big Ten is better than the top of the SEC. I would disagree through the rest of the conference simply because the SEC has more talent, and I think that the conference that has more talent is the better conference. Okay? We'll get to more of that here in a moment. Here's my biggest question, though. I posed it to Jim Coyle. If the Big Ten's better than the SEC, then why isn't Indiana playing SEC teams in their non-conference? If the Big Ten is the best conference in the country, then why is Indiana and Coach Cignetti canceling games against teams like Virginia, like they did last year? Why are they canceling games against Louisville, like they did in Coach Cignetti's first year at the school? If the Big Ten is so big and bad, then why isn't Indiana playing Clemson in a non-conference game like LSU is doing this year? Why isn't Indiana playing Texas like Ohio State is doing this year? I'm all for talking crap. It's part of what makes the sport great. Okay? But be more willing to go meet the challenge. I know they beat Alabama in the playoff last year, 38-3. It is a real talking point for Indiana now, and absolutely so when you're talking, because look, Alabama fans are the worst. I hate them with I sports hate them with every part of my sports hate ability. But anyone who watched Alabama last year knew that they weren't a playoff team. Also, if Ty Simpson doesn't get hurt in that game, Indiana wins. It's not what I'm saying. But it's probably not 38-3. Okay? You're at the top of the Big Ten. Go play the teams at the top of the SEC. Go play Georgia. Go play Texas A&M. Go play Texas. You're the best team in the country. You should have no problem going and doing this. Okay, I get it. Alabama's the face of the SEC, but the guy who built Alabama's not there anymore. They're clearly not the same since Coach Saban left. I mean, they tried to get Coach DeBoer at SEC Media Days to say that their goal was to win national championships, and he didn't say that. So it's clearly not Alabama team. Go play Georgia. Go play LSU, because I'm assuming with Coach Kiffin there now, they're going to be a lot better. Okay, the SEC will not run from the challenge. The SEC plays other Power 4 teams in the non-conference. If you don't believe me, listen to these games. LSU is playing Clemson. Texas plays Ohio State. Arkansas is going to go play Utah. Alabama plays Florida State. Auburn plays Baylor. Florida plays Florida State every year. Mississippi State's going to play Minnesota. Missouri plays Kansas. Oklahoma is going to play Michigan again. Ole Miss plays Louisville. South Carolina plays Clemson every year. Georgia plays Georgia Tech every year. Tennessee plays Georgia Tech this year. A&M is going to play Arizona State again. And Vanderbilt plays North Carolina State. Kentucky is the only team in the SEC that is not going to play against a Power 4 team in their non-conference schedule this year. And when you look at the new SEC scheduling rules, they play 9 conference games, and starting, I believe, next year, they are required to play one Power 4 non-conference team in their non-conference schedule, which means SEC teams are looking for Power 4 teams to play. Indiana, you're going to have your opportunities. Let's sign it up. Let's put it on the field, and let's watch this happen. Like, give us another great early season game to watch, like we got between Texas and Ohio State last year, like we're going to get between Texas and Ohio State this year, and we're going to get between Clemson and LSU this year. Okay, if the Big Ten is as great as everybody says, like, let's line it up. Let's do an SEC and Big Ten challenge. That would be the best. Because I know what the bowl records are. Look, the best players aren't playing in bowl games. The best players are playing in the college football playoff, and they're playing in the regular season. So if the game's not played during the regular season or in the college football playoff, I don't really care about it. Okay? The top of the Big Ten is better than the top of the SEC. Everyone knows this. I think everyone understands this. Because of that, Indiana should have no problem playing Georgia. Okay? Now, I will continue to argue that the SEC is the better conference top to bottom because there's more talent there. The better teams and the better conferences have more talent. We see this in basketball. The New York Knicks won the NBA Finals this last year, but everybody knows that the Western Conference is better because they have more talent. They have better players over there, top to bottom. Okay, the SEC led college football again last year with 87 players drafted. That was a record. They've had the most players selected in every NFL draft for the last 20 years. The SEC has had 50 players selected in the draft for the last 12 years straight. Only 5 times in the last 30 years has any other conference accomplished that feat. And all the other conferences have done it 0 times consecutively. And again, the SEC has done it 12 years in a row. Okay? And I'm just a firm believer that talent is ultimately how you win. The SEC has better talent top to bottom, so I would argue that they're the best conference top to bottom, even if the top of their conference is not as good as the top of the Big Ten. Okay, so there is your Big Ten versus SEC content for the day. Now, Coach Cignetti said a lot more at his, during his media day than just the jab at the SEC. Okay? This is my favorite thing that Coach Cignetti said during his media time. Here is Coach Cignetti talking about, the standard at Indiana.
If I have a guy that consistently cannot do his best, cannot be on time, cannot rub off positively on others, is uncoachable, he's not going to be in my program.
Coach Cignetti right there. And that's why they're good. They hold their players to an incredibly high standard. I know this is something that we talk about all the time, but here's the thing. Every team in the country talks about standards. Indiana has the highest for their players. That's why they won the national title last year. When Nick Saban was the head coach at Alabama, he held his players to a higher standard than anyone else in college football, and they won a lot of national titles under Nick Saban. This is the difference between Indiana and the other elite programs in college football. There is something about the standard at Indiana that gets a little more out of guys compared to the standard at Ohio State and Oregon and Georgia and, Clemson and Virginia and all of the other, teams that are at the top of their conference. Texas Tech, much, much higher standard than the standard at Texas Tech, for crying out loud, okay? I would argue it's simply because he just doesn't put up with it. Listen to Coach Cignetti talk a little bit more about his standard.
Well, I think when you have a lot of good people, the whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts. But one bad apple also, well, you've heard that one before, right? So we don't have bad apples. Coach Cignetti takes care of the bad apples. When they start getting a little soft on one side, right, they get looked at real close. And then when they've rotted some more a little while later, they're out of here.
Coach Cignetti right there talking about bad apples. Usually when they get soft on one side, they're given a pill and then they're okay. But I guess it just kind of depends on what you're talking about there. Also, just in case you didn't know, one bad raspberry ruins the whole box. Same thing with blackberries. Had to throw out a lot of produce yesterday. I was pretty sad when I got home yesterday, Chris. I was like, raspberries and blackberries, let's go.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Dude, they were all fuzzy. I was like, gosh dang it.
I'm sorry, man.
It made I was sad, man.
Yeah,
Sucked.
I bet.
Sucked. Anyway, Coach Cignetti in Indiana, they don't deal with bad apples, bad raspberries, blackberries, whatever. They get rid of them when they go bad, so they don't impact everybody else. It's simple, but it's hard to do. What if that bad apple is really talented? If you play for Coach Cignetti, it doesn't matter. You're gone. There are a lot of other coaches out there who would very simply turn a blind eye just because a guy is talented. The standard is the standard at IU. It's higher than everybody else's, and it's why they've ascended so quickly to the top of college football. It's a combination of the standard, Coach Cignetti, and his ability to keep his coordinators. Okay? Jim Coyle, in that last segment, he's right. Indiana has, the best defensive coordinator in college football as well. So, yeah, it's a good time. C. Fitch chiming in, saying because the Big Ten has won the last 3 national championships, to be the man, you have to beat the man. And this is my other thing with the Big Ten. Everyone complained about Michigan cheating, and you still complain about it, except win this argument. All of a sudden, it's like, no, forget that Michigan cheated. We've won 3 in a row. Just saying. So it's an interesting thing. But, again, the top of the Big Ten's better than the top of any other conference. But, look, Arkansas went 2-10 last year. Purdue went 2-10 last year. Those were the two worst teams in each conference. When you look at Arkansas, when you go by the numbers, they had one of the 10 best offenses in college football. They had 4 players drafted into the NFL. Cam Ball got picked up by the Colts here locally. How many Purdue players got drafted? The answer is 0. There's more talent in the SEC. That's why I'll argue that it's better. So, but hey, that's neither here nor there. No one really cares about that. We care about the top. I would also argue as well that there's not really an easy schedule in the SEC. But, you look at Indiana's outside of Ohio State and maybe Michigan, we'll see. If you look at Penn State's schedule, it's almost as easy as Notre Dame's. So you don't really see that happening very often in the SEC either. But, hey, like I said, not a big deal. Indiana going to be in the mix again to win another national title this year, it seems. The Indianapolis Colts, if they want to get back to the playoffs, they're going to have to learn how to win ugly games. They have an ugly record in games where they score less than 20 points. I will give you what that record is. We've also got a little bit of audio from Carly Ursay-Gordon when she spoke to the media earlier today. We'll play that audio for you at 2 o'clock. But first, Chris has your sports update.
Thanks, Jonathan. Here's what's trending this hour. It was family day at Colts training camp in Westfield. Chris Ballard announced the signing of undrafted free agent running back Roydell Williams out of Florida State. There you go. Rumors also continue that Ballard is keeping close tabs on the veteran market, with Alec Pierce sidelined for another week on the PUP list. They did, however, also sign undrafted free agent Liam Clifford to their wide receiver room, so congrats to them. The Indiana Fever looking to stay on top of the Eastern Conference standings and extend their season-best 4-game winning streak tonight against the Portland Fire. 10 o'clock Eastern. You can find that game on the Ion Network. Aaliyah Boston listed as probable, so hopefully she gets back in the game tonight. That's what's trending this hour. More of the Real Jonathan Smith Show in 4 minutes on Indy Sports Ticket 1430.
It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Hour number 3 of the real Jonathan Smith Show. I went to talk and then, choked on my spit. Not great. Welcome into the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in. YouTube, X, the Indy Sports Ticket app, or 1430 AM. I've hit 20,000 steps on the day already, and I am very proud of that. That's been my goal every day this week, and I've hit it. So there's that. Chris, is there a better way to burn calories than walking? Any better way to get your heart rate up?
Yeah, but you can't talk about it on the radio.
What? We can't talk about running on the radio? It's not allowed?
That's what you call it?
Running? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I usually run before bed.
Okay. Good for you, man. Just bragging in the faces of some people who haven't run in years.
Hey, man. Never too late to get back on the track, I guess. Stretch your legs first.
What's the track's name?
Whatever you want it to be, I guess.
All right. Was that our first bell of the day?
Yeah.
It's been a weird show then.
You've been busy.
We're going all
being
this time.
professional over there.
Yeah, been busy running too.
Nothing wrong with that, my friend. I need to get more steps in myself.
Oh man. Oh, that's so funny. Kent Sterling. Sweet. Kent Sterling is going to join the show coming up here at 2:20. And he will talk about Carly Ursay-Gordon and the things that she had to say at her press conference today. So the Colts, Shane Steichen, they don't win ugly games with him as the head coach. Okay, so Shane Steichen got the Colts job because he is an offensive-minded coach. He took over a team that had the 4th overall pick in the NFL draft. And part of his job was to develop Anthony Richardson. He couldn't do that. And to be fair to him, I don't think there are many coaches in the NFL that could. Trying to build an NFL-ready quarterback from scratch in 2 years is like trying to build an airplane when you're already in the air. Okay. Also, I'm not of the belief that you have to develop quarterbacks to be a good offensive coach. Look at Sean McVay. He didn't develop Jared Goff at all. I know he reached the Super Bowl with Goff, but during that season, Sean McVay would tell Jared Goff where to throw the football before their communications were cut off with 15 seconds to go. Okay, McVay wasn't teaching Goff how to drive. He was steering the remote control car from the sideline. The reason why they only scored 3 points in that Super Bowl is because the Patriots wouldn't show what defense they were in until there were less than 15 seconds left on the play clock. Jared Goff didn't know what to do because Coach McVay, who might be the best coach in the NFL, didn't develop him to know how to do that. Okay? The best coaches in any sport win. That is the ultimate goal for any coach or player. And when things look good for the Colts, they win games. Their magic number is 20 points. If they can get to 20 points, then they normally win. The problem is when things don't go their way. The Colts are 3-17 under Shane Steichen when they fail to score 20 points. That means 17 of his 26 losses as the Colts head coach have come when they've scored less than 20 points. Now, to his credit, he's 22-9 when the Colts score more than 20 points. That's a winning percentage of 71% when the Colts score 20 points or more. Now, their winning percentage plummets to 15% when they score less than 20 points, and that's obviously a problem. Now, that's not entirely a Shane Steichen thing. When he has his starting quarterback, the Colts tend to score points. In 11 of the 12 games that Daniel Jones started and finished last year, the Colts scored 20 points, and all of them except for one. Okay, they were 8-4 during that stretch. After Daniel Jones got hurt and the Colts turned to Riley Leonard and Phillip Rivers, the Colts only scored 20 points in 2 of their remaining 5 games. My point here is it's hard to score 20 points in the NFL when you don't have a good quarterback. Coach Steichen's first 2 years in the NFL, he mainly had Anthony Richardson, Gardner Minshew, and Joe Flacco as his starting quarterbacks. All 3 of those guys are now backups. Okay, running an elite offense with that group is like trying to win an F1 race in a used minivan. Can you do it? Sure. You're just probably not going to. Okay, but they have to find a way because there are going to be times this year where the offense doesn't have it rolling. There are going to be games this year when you look at Daniel Jones's history that he's not going to play in, and they have to find a way to win those games. Carly Gordon spoke to the media earlier on today, and she has a statement that makes me think that she's going to be just fine as the Colts owner. Listen to her talk here about, the Colts phrase for this upcoming season.
So I just wanted to start by sharing something that I spoke to the team about on Tuesday. And that was, as we reflected on last season, this one phrase just kept coming to my mind, and that was find a way. And so that was the mantra that we settled on kind of for this season. And we came to find a way because we thought about what are the qualities that successful people have. And those qualities are consistency. Those qualities are resilience in the face of adversity. And those qualities, most importantly, are a mental toughness and a find a way mindset. And I know and believe that on our roster and in our organization, we have everything we need this year to get where we need to go.
Carly Gordon, Colts owner right there, talking about a lot of different things, reflecting on last season. Find a way. That is their phrase for the season, and oftentimes in this Shane Steichen era, the Colts have not been able to find a way. Okay, she talked about mental toughness in that little clip there as well, and that's so important because mental toughness is the thing that you have to have when you're on the road playing against the Rams. You're about to go up, and A.D. Mitchell drops the football right before the goal line, and it bounces through the back of the end zone. Colts went on to lose that game. You have to have the mental toughness to respond when something awful like that happens. Let's go back 2 years ago. Colts are on the road playing against the Broncos. Things are going smoothly. Jonathan Taylor drops the football before crossing the goal line. Completely flips that game on its head, and the Colts lacked the mental fortitude to bounce back from that and find a way to win. They went on to lose that game 31-13. The wheels completely fell off. And over the course of a 17-game season, you are going to have plays and moments that suck. And you have to find a way to bounce back from them and find a way to win. Last year, they're playing against the Jaguars. And look, it sucked when Daniel Jones got hurt. You could tell by the way that he went down, he certainly wasn't going to finish that game. And the Colts were pretty pitiful after that. They lost that game 37-19, something like that. Okay, is that a terrible thing to experience? Absolutely. But you have to find a way to respond when bad stuff happens because it's bound to happen throughout the season. Okay? When you can't score points, you can't break 20 points. You have to rely on your defense, and you have to find a way to win those games. Now, the Colts defensive personnel hasn't been good the majority of the time that Coach Steichen has been here. Okay, he also had to have Gus Bradley as his defensive coordinator for a couple of those years. So, it's like trying to put out a hose or a house fire with a leaky garden hose. You're running backup caliber quarterbacks onto the field alongside defenses that lack talent, and they're also coached by Gus Bradley. Good luck. But that's changing this year. This is a defense that should be able to keep the Colts in games if they're healthy because of how good this secondary should be. Every offense in the NFL wants to throw the football. Seems like every team in the NFL is going out and hiring coaches who know how to throw the ball. If you've been an offensive coordinator who's called plays in the NFL for 5 minutes, you can probably get a job. Okay, the Colts defense, no matter how many questions we have about the pass rush and some of the young players that are on the defense, they should be pretty good at keeping teams from throwing the football. And that alone should give the Colts a chance to stay in games when their offense doesn't have it rolling. Okay, like a great defense is like a giant safety net. When the offense trips up and drops the ball at the goal line, the defense keeps you from crashing to the bottom. It's Part of why the Seahawks won the Super Bowl last year. Okay, like their defense was spectacular. Okay, Lou Anarumo is also in year 2 with the Colts. That should hopefully lead to some improvements from this Colts defense because familiarity with the scheme is important. The Colts have gone out and added more players that fit into what he wants to do as well. They've gotten younger and more athletic on defense. C.J. Allen and Justin Wally headline that idea by replacing Zaire Franklin and Kenny Moore. This defense should be better, and that should lead to more competitive games when the Colts can't find a way to score 20 points. Now, I don't want to let Coach Steichen off the hook. When it comes to the Colts' inability to win ugly, with him as the head coach, one, he's responsible for everything that happens because he's the head coach. But secondly, when you were an offensive head coach, you have to find a way to score more than 20 points. That was the difference for the Colts last year between making and missing the playoffs. They lost to the Texans 20-16 in Daniel Jones' final start of the year. If you find a way to get one more touchdown in that football game, there's a decent chance that you win. They lost to the Seahawks 18-16. I understand that Phillip Rivers was playing, but you've got to turn one of those field goal drives into a touchdown drive, and then you potentially win that game. They lost to the Jaguars at home last year, again with Phillip Rivers, 23-17. That's a one-possession game where if you generate one more touchdown, like that changes that game potentially. So, yes, the Colts are better equipped to win ugly, low-scoring games this year because they finally have a defense, I think, that's capable of winning a mud fight occasionally. Shane Steichen still has to find a way to grind out a few extra points in those games. It's tough to ask NFL defenses, no matter how good they are, to keep NFL offenses under 20 points. Shane Steichen's offenses have to be better in these ugly games. That will likely be the difference between the Colts making or missing the playoffs. 3-17 in games where they fail to score 20 points. There has to be more mental toughness. There has to be more resiliency when things don't go your way. Okay, I like Coach Steichen. I think he's a good coach. I think that he should be here for a while longer because it's not his fault that Chris Ballard has put together these bad rosters. But at the same time, 3-17, when your team scores less than 20 points, you've got to find a way to pull more toughness and more resiliency out of your team when the bad stuff happens that is bound to happen throughout the course of a season. So we'll see how it goes because it's called schedule. It's not easy. I think it's tougher than last year's. Like that a game against the Ravens, Jesse Minter's gonna have something for you. It's gonna be a tough first game for your offense. The Chiefs, Steve Spagnuolo, he's gonna have something for this Colts offense. That's played the Texans twice. DeMeco Ryans and his defenses have done an excellent job against Coach Steichen and his offenses. The Colts have beaten them once during Coach Steichen's stint here in Indianapolis. The Steelers, week 5, they've got a lot of good defensive players on that roster. They've played the Titans twice this year. Robert Saleh is going to try to turn every game into a rock fight. Because that's, first of all, he's a defensive-minded head coach who I think is going to get a lot out of that Titans defense. And secondly, he knows his offense probably won't be very good. They have to play Minnesota week 7. Brian Flores, I promise, is going to make life tough on this Colts offense, and they're going to have to find a way to grind out points. Shane Steichen is yet to beat Jacksonville during his time here. He's got to find a way to grind out wins against these tougher teams, especially early on during the Colts schedule. So we'll see how it goes. Very excited to have Kent Sterling on the show coming up here at 2:20. He was at the Carly Ursay-Gordon press conference earlier today. He's got the details we need. He will join the show here in about 4 minutes.
may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh.
The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Colts camp is fully underway. We are now joined by the one and only Kent Sterling. Check him out on YouTube. Recently passing 25,000 subscribers. Kent, that's awesome, man. Congrats on that.
Well, thank you very much. It's all due to the subscribers. They're the smart ones, not me.
Fair enough. Carly Ursay-Gordon speaking to the media earlier today. What was just kind of your biggest takeaway from everything that she had to say?
Well, if she's true to her word, she's not getting in Chris Ballard's way if he wants to enhance the roster, and then she wants them to go for it. And that's the phrase for the year. They've got to go for it, whatever it is. I would think that it's, like late in the game, go make the play that's going to get you a win. I don't know. I mean, she's really good at talking and saying very little. And there were some good questions in there, and she sidestepped them really well. She's so different from her dad because you could ask him a great question, get a terrible answer, ask him a terrible question, get a great answer. You never knew what was coming next. And with her, you really do know about everything that is coming next. And very little of it is going to give you any enlightenment as to how this franchise is being run. But that's the job of an owner. Talk, stay out of the way. So I think I'm not being critical of her, but we really didn't learn much at all.
Did anyone ask her thoughts on Chris Ballard saying he would not sign an extension if he was offered one?
Nobody asked that specifically because everybody dismissed that answer as utter nonsense when it was offered. That was just craziness. And that's what drives fans nuts about Ballard. I mean, that's nutty. Like, there isn't a Colts fan in the world or a human being where if they're offered the kind of money that Ballard makes as a general manager for the Colts, if they're offered that kind of money, they say, oh, sure, I'd like another 3 years of that or another 4 years of that. That'd be great. They don't say, no, hey, let me get through this season, and if we win, then we can have our conversation. He's negotiating backwards, and nobody does that, so nobody really takes what he has to say too seriously either.
Absolutely. Joined by Kent Sterling talking about the Colts. We played one clip from her press conference earlier today, and look, I sitting across from Dan for 2 years. Whenever anyone says the word toughness, I just perk up a little bit. She talked about resiliency and finding a way and being mentally tougher, which I do think there's some truth to. Like when you go back to the Broncos game a couple years ago, things are going well. Jonathan Taylor drops the ball, and things just kind of fell apart. The Rams game, you could argue the same thing happened. It kind of felt like after Daniel Jones got hurt last year, things kind of fell apart from there. How much of this Colts team, do you think really needs to be mentally tougher, kind of like with what she was saying?
Well, I agree they need to be tougher, but I don't think you can talk it. I think you got to walk it. And I don't think you necessarily learn toughness. I think you need to draft toughness. And I hope that that's what the Colts have done with Allen and Halsey and Farmer and all the guys, Curry, all the guys that they went out and got. I hope that has become better in particular. I hope that's become one of the criteria that they really highlight as they're going over their draft board. You got to draft tough guys, and I hope that this team does become tougher. Now, toughness on an NFL field, you're tough just by your existence out there. But what you've got to be is comparatively tough. Are you a team that in the last 2 minutes is going to be tough enough mentally to do what you're supposed to do, not let the moment overwhelm you, and be able to trust the other 10 guys on the field with you to do their jobs as well. It's kind of like that Indiana University. I can't believe these words are even coming out of my mouth. But last year, they sort of showed a toughness in their consistency that I think is now the envy of every other college football team in the Power Four.
I would agree. Like, Indiana's toughness last year, I think it's why they won the national title. Like, I thought I thought they were tested and they had to show toughness, where like coming or responding against Oregon after the pick six, the comeback against Penn State, the game on the road against Iowa was tough. Whereas, like, when you looked at Ohio State, they just kind of cruised against everybody. And I felt like when Miami and Indiana punched them in the mouth, they just hadn't had the reps in responding, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. When Indiana needed a big play, they got a big play. Whether that was Mendoza with the spin in the stretch, or whether that was the pick toward the end of the game from Beck. Beck had an opportunity to make a big play, didn't. The Indiana kid did. I think it was sharp. And when Mendoza had an opportunity, 4th and 5, I mean, that coaching staff is so tough. I get goosebumps talking about it. They decide on 4th and 5, they're not going to throw it with a Heisman Trophy winner. They're not going to run it with either of their 1,000-yard rush guys. They're going to go ahead and give it to the quarterback on a quarterback draw and say, you know what, go get us 5 yards. And if you can, get us another 7 and get us into the end zone. And that's exactly what he did. That's unbelievable confidence being shown by a coaching staff that's got brass ones that are the size of cantaloupes.
Absolutely. Joined by Kent Sterling. Let's get back to the Colts here. But I think one of the things that I liked about kind of Carly or Ursay Gordon's quote on like finding a way, I don't know if you've seen the stat. The Colts are 3-17 in games where they fail to score 20 points, which I think part of that is defensive personnel hasn't exactly been good enough for them to win games where they don't score 20 points. I think that's changing this year. How do you think that they're going to fare in games this year where maybe the offense doesn't have it rolling?
Well, I think they're going to be better. Like, one of the things that I think has been really cool through 3 days of watching Sauce Gardner out on the field in training camp is that with Sauce, like, there have been 3 or 4 times I'm sitting with Rick Venturi and I'll say, oh, he's got him. Meaning that, like, you've got Daniel Jones and he's got Laquan Treadwell or somebody else in a pattern where it looks like that receiver is open. And then, and they're being covered by Sauce. Sauce, it looks like he doesn't have good coverage, but he does have good coverage because he's long enough to be able to kind of make up that distance and go ahead and get to the ball. The Colts have always been a team with their secondary, or at least for the last several years, where you thought, oh, no, he's got, that receiver is covered, but he wasn't. They didn't make a play on the ball. They looked like they were covered, but they weren't. With Sauce and with Mooney Ward, although Mooney had a day off today, it's kind of like, oh, no, he's wide open. And then all of a sudden, Sauce makes the adjustment and gets to the football. So bad coverage winds up being good as opposed to what we had last year. And that was occasionally good coverage that wound up not paying off and looked bad. I think that as that secondary goes, is going to go the team, because if that secondary is good and they can hold their coverage for an extra half second, that makes that defensive line much more dynamic, and that defense will be better. What they had last year were the remnants of the Gus Bradley and Matt Eberflus defense, and that's not what Lou Anarumo plays. So that first year under Anarumo, they were adjusting, figuring out what they needed. And now they've kind of gone out and gotten it. And C.J. Allen on the field today was a big deal, getting him back so quickly from that calf strain. And he looked pretty good to the extent you can tell without those guys in pads. But that they've got the versatility now that Anarumo needs to run his system. And I think this is going to be much better.
Yeah, look at C.J. Allen. The first the first Colts player that's ever been listed as day-to-day that's actually day-to-day. It's pretty great. um, I did want to ask you, you mentioned the defensive line. I know there's a lot of talk around Arden Key or Tui Moloau, who's going to start there. I know that they're not in pads yet. Does Tui Moloau look any different just physically from last year to this year?
No, he looks pretty similar. Like, I don't think he's cut a bunch of weight. But those guys, what they're going to have with those guys, instead of like Kwity Paye was a guy who got to the quarterback occasionally, especially 2 years ago, and was a pretty good run-stopping defensive end. Now you've got a good run-stopping defensive end in Tui Moloau, and then you've got a good pass rush guy in Key. So I would expect on passing downs, you're going to see a lot of Key. On run downs, you're going to see a lot of Tui Moloau. So they're trying to fuse like two players into one position, each of them having different strengths and being able to do different things given the circumstance, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. Joined by Kent Sterling. Go and check him out on YouTube. Just search for Kent Sterling. He does a great job covering the Colts and IU sports. So the Colts signed an undrafted free agent wide receiver, and the big outcry since has been like, just go get Keenan Allen. I understand why people want him, but like when I look at the Michael Pittman stuff last year, I just don't feel like he's that hard to replace. He was like 5 receptions for 45 yards a game, didn't really stretch the field. I just feel like you can shift a lot of that stuff to Tyler Warren. After hearing Charvarius Ward talk at every press conference he's been at, it seems like retirement just gets brought up every time he speaks. Part of me would rather them go find like a backup corner just to get a little deeper there in case something does happen with Ward. I know you mentioned the last time we were on, you talked about the Colts signing Allen. But what do you think of that idea of like, let's just shift more of it to Warren and maybe spend that money on like a backup corner?
If they can't get Allen done, I think they're ready to go Moneyball with this and replace Pittman in the aggregate. What they've got to replace, 111 targets, 80 catches, and, about 800 yards and a half dozen touchdowns. I think he had 7, Pittman did. That's what you've got to replace. So can you do that with Doolin and Warren and Downs and, let's say, Will Mallory? Because one thing that Ballard said that I thought was kind of revealing is that what they're thinking about doing is moving Mallory around and using him because he is a really good functional wide receiver or receiving tight end. So he could split out a little bit and give people trouble in coverage because he's got great size. So I think you just need to replace him in the aggregate. The thing that I like about Keenan Allen is that he's a professional. He is toward the end. He's not going to be expensive because his career is almost over. And you can bring him in, and he knows that offense exceptionally well. He knows the verbiage. It's the Chargers offense that he worked in like for his first 7 years when Steichen was there. They know each other, and so it's just kind of seamless. And so you would assume that Keenan Allen's not going to sign at the beginning of training camp because he's 34 years old or whatever, and he doesn't need a full camp. Yeah. So I think he'd be a great fit in that way, but I think they're kind of committed to replacing him in the aggregate. As for the depth in the secondary, I think it's really pretty good as long as they stay healthy. If Ward stays healthy and Gardner stays healthy, Wally stays healthy, Bynum stays healthy, Halsey stays healthy, then you've got backups that are really workable. Where you get into trouble is that, like last year, if you have Jonathan Edwards starting as an undrafted free agent rookie out of Tulane, then who you got backing him up? Like, you have no depth whatsoever if that guy's starting for you. And so that becomes problematic. They're not real deep, but if that secondary can stay healthy, I think it's the strength of that defensive side of the ball for the Colts.
I would agree. So yesterday, or the start of camp, Hunter Wohler is taking snaps with the ones. That happened the first day. I believe that happened yesterday as well. They asked Coach Anarumo about it, and he was like, yeah, it's just a normal position battle position battle or whatever. I'm kind of concerned. It's like this is your third round pick battling with the seventh round pick who's played 0 snaps. I know that he had a nice camp. How much of a battle do you think that really is?
I don't think it's a battle at all. There are roles that Hunter Wohler can play on this team, but starting at safety probably isn't among them. He's going to be, if he stays healthy, a really good special teamer. And then he's also going to be a guy that you can bring in maybe in dime who can be sort of you've got sort of a dime look, but he's got linebacker traits. And so it gives you some versatility that you wouldn't have otherwise. But I don't think that he's not the starting box. Maybe Halsey, when they go too high, it goes Halsey and Bynum. And if they're going to go heavy run box, they bring in Wooler or something like that. But I don't see him as the starting safety at all.
Okay,
They love Halsey. Love Halsey. So I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, he's the new Justin Wally. Anytime he does anything, we're probably going to hear about it. Let's go topic, not question. One of my concerns for the Colts this year has been when you look at average salary, they've made Alec Pierce the 14th highest paid receiver in football. And when you look at some of the guys around that range, it's your T. Higgins, George Pickens kind of guys who can do a little more than just stretch the defense, which is most of what we've seen Alec Pierce do during his time here. And he's been hurt all offseason. How do you think he's going to look when he comes back and they ask him to, like, win underneath and win in the intermediate area like Jim Bob Cooter talked about yesterday?
Yeah, I think he can do that. I don't think they needed him to do that. And if you pair him, let's say it's with Doolin. It's Doolin and Pierce. I think Doolin has as much straight line speed as Pierce. And so if you want to kind of juggle that and have Doolin take the free safety out of the play and cut Alec underneath, I think you can do that with him, and you're not going to lose anything. So I think that Pierce is going to be fine. I mean I think he's he's not a Swiss Army knife, but he's got a couple of things that he can do really well. They just haven't asked him to do it. And so I think he'll be fine. I don't think that's a concern.
Joined by Kent Sterling. You can check him out on YouTube. Just search for Kent Sterling, and he'll pop up. He does a great job covering both the Colts and Indiana. Oh, man, I had another question, and I just completely forgot what it was. Oh, wide receiver 3. They sign Nick Westbrook Akina from the Dolphins last year. Haven't really heard anything about him, which is surprising considering he played at IU 7 or 8 years ago. How has he looked, and does it kind of feel like Ashton Doolin's going to be wide receiver 3 if they don't bring anybody in?
He looked good today. Like, he had a couple of catches. He really hadn't done much until today, but today he looked pretty good. Another guy who's looked good is Treadwell. Treadwell's looked pretty good. Now, I think he's had like 3 catches in the last 5 years or something crazy, but he's a guy that they're giving a shot at this position too. And so you've also got, you've got Gould, and you got the rookie 7th round pick. And so you're going to look at a bunch of guys and see if somehow or another that third position, I would be surprised if it was kind of like a situation where you were like, okay, it's Pierce, Downs, and Treadwell, or Pierce, Downs, and Doolin. I think they're going to rotate that third position a lot because those guys all have different traits. And I think that could be a headache for defensive coordinators. But Westbrook Akina, 2 years ago, he was really pretty good. And then last year with the Dolphins, he just didn't find his footing. If he can figure it out here and they can figure out how to use him adequately and showcase his strengths, I think he becomes a strength. And I think that Doolin's just a guy who makes plays. Like, you always see him making plays. When they've given him an opportunity, somebody's been hurt, Pierce has been down with a concussion, or Pittman's been down, you would see Doolin get in there, and wow, this guy makes good catches. He gets yak, and I'm happy with this guy. It's kind of like, to go back to the secondary for a minute, I was talking today about Cameron Mitchell.
Mhm.
Because, like Cameron Mitchell, you forget is even on the team as a backup corner. And then you watch and you're like, who's 43? Hey, look, 43 again. Right? It's always Cameron Mitchell. And he just keeps making play after play after play after play. And I look at Doolin as a very similar guy to that, where these guys just make plays. They don't have great, like, they're not checking all the boxes for speed, size, length, all of that stuff. But they just go out and play football. And the Colts think that they've got some guys who can do that. Caden Curry is a guy who does that, just plays football. He doesn't have any length, really,
No.
short-armed, actually. And they think that he's going to be a guy who plays meaningful football for this team. So I think that Ballard has really sort of adjusted his playbook in terms of what kind of players he's looking for. And right now, you've got some guys who do check a lot of boxes, but really the bench, the twos, you just got football players who want to go out there and ball. And I like having those kinds of guys.
Me too. I love Doolin. Like, to add on to your point, last year, A.D. Mitchell goes in the doghouse and then gets sent to Siberia, otherwise known as the Jets. And Doolin just stepped in and did everything that was asked of him. And so I really like him. I feel like he'll get the majority of the snaps at wide receiver 3, just kind of dependent on how they rotate everything, especially since he can really run. He's got pretty decent size, too. He's like 6'2", 210. So,
yeah.
Last thing for real here. I always lie to my guests, Ken. I say last thing, and then it's 7 more things. Riley Leonard, Anthony Richardson, backup quarterback battle. I know it's going to be Leonard, but how have those guys looked?
Well, I'll tell you what, they're having trouble, and this goes to the backup centers as well. Like Tanner Bortolini does a good job snapping the football. These other guys, holy moly, they're all over the place. Some of them roll back. Some of them, one yesterday went over the head, I think, of Richardson, and he can jump out of the gym. And then Richardson on balls beneath his eye level, it really seems to have trouble catching the ball clean. So that becomes a problem. And we saw that in OTAs, and we just kind of wrote it off as a vision problem. But there were real problems today, especially with him bobbling snaps. And if you can't catch it, you can't throw it. And so he better fix that somehow. And the guys who are fighting for that backup center position, they better learn how to snap that ball correctly right to the pocket of the quarterback so he can catch it easily and begin his progression on time. This is a problem. I mean, high school teams, you would expect this kind of thing. But at a training camp, I mean, if I had a chance to stick as a backup center, I'd be in the yard snapping to my wife like every single day 150 times. I mean, I would get good at it somehow or another. And these guys are just really struggling with that. So it's almost hard to appraise the level of play. Like Riley Leonard, Joel Erickson said this in I hope I'm not speaking out of turn and attributing this to him, but he said it. He said, we got one quarterback who holds the ball way too long, and we got another who can't catch it. And that's kind of the battle of the backup quarterbacks. You've got Riley Leonard, who is in the pocket, then out of the pocket, and he's got the ball 5-6 seconds before he's making a decision where to go with it. And Anthony Richardson is bobbling every snap. So these guys are not through their play early in this camp, and it's way early in the camp. So, we shouldn't get too panic-stricken over it. These guys are really hard to compare because neither are doing the thing that they need to do best really well at all.
Okay, that's not comforting at all. But that's all right. Hopefully Daniel Jones just plays all year.
But it's July 31st.
Yeah, true.
It matters what they are September 13th. It doesn't matter what they are today. So we're overreacting, and we always overreact because this is what we see. And that's why we go to camp. You go to camp and you watch and you're like, oh, my God. And then 2 weeks later, 3 weeks from now, we're going to see the joint practices with and against the Falcons. And either our fears are going to be confirmed or we're going to feel really good about this team. So, and I think defensively, you should feel really good about it. And then, like you said, Daniel Jones has got to stay healthy.
Yeah, they've got the joint practice against the Patriots as well. I know the defensive backs coach over there, and so I'm hoping to get some nice reports from him whenever we're done. So we'll see how it goes. What else coming up on the Kent Sterling YouTube page?
Well, I can't get enough of talking about Kurt Cignetti and what he had to say yesterday about the SEC. I thought it was glorious. I thought that was just like that guy. You talk about a coach of a football team that always delivers. The coach always delivers. Like when he goes to Big Ten Media Day, of course he's going to be the last man standing on Thursday because he is going to give you the mic drop moment that everybody's going to be talking about until they start playing football on September 5th, and he delivered yesterday.
He absolutely did. Set the world ablaze. And like the best thing about him when he does it is like nothing can be said. Whereas when Brett Bielema did what he did, everyone was like, "You couldn't win at Arkansas. Shut up." And so that's the good thing about Coach Cignetti. He can say it, and no one can really say anything back to him.
Hey, 27-2 gives you the license to say whatever the hell you want.
I do wish they would stop canceling games against Power 4 teams in the non-conference. That was the one thing. Like when he said it, I was like, why are we canceling games against frickin' Virginia then,
Well, I'm not going to argue with 27-2 or 16-0. If that guy wants to schedule the Little Sisters of the Poor in the 3 non-conference games, I'm all about it. Let's go. In Cignetti we trust.
Absolutely. Kent, thanks for your time, man.
All right, brother. We'll see you, Jonathan.
See you later. That is the great Kent Sterling. Again, go to YouTube, search Kent Sterling. He does a great job covering the Colts and Indiana. Oh, man, that went way longer than it was supposed to. We will tell you what we learned on the Real Jonathan Smith Show coming up around 2:52. We'll talk weekend. We got karaoke tonight with Chris. We'll talk about that as well in about 3 minutes.
best takes? Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
We have SummerSlam this weekend. Is that right, Chris?
Yes, sir. Wrestling
For those who don't know,
for 2 nights.
I am not a WWE guy. Welcome into the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Do us a favor. Go subscribe on YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. You can also watch the show on X__Jonathan Smith to follow me there. And watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM. We got SummerSlam. What is
It's the struggle snuggle.
the struggle snuggle? Yeah, what is it that you like about watching shirtless dudes hug each other a whole bunch?
It's not so much that. It's the like the storyline, right? Everything that goes along with it, the fans and
It's like this
he
is
said this.
like
He said this
here's why this big guy is hugging this other big guy.
aggressively.
It's the why behind it. I get it.
Well, I like when the ladies hug each other too, so it's fine.
Oh, okay. Nice. That's funny. Okay. Will you be watching it this weekend?
I'll probably check it out. I mean, it doesn't sound super complicated this weekend like it normally does. It looks like it's just on the ESPN app, but it is 2 nights when it used to just be a Sunday night, pay-per-view thing. So tomorrow at 6 and then Sunday at 6 as well. 2 loaded nights of struggling, snuggling.
Okay. Good to know, man. Good to know. So like during karaoke tonight and tomorrow, are you just going to be giving updates? Like, I
don't think anybody that comes out for karaoke cares about wrestling.
Someone's going to be singing Sweet Caroline. You're going to be like, we interrupt this song to let you know that who's your favorite wrestler?
I don't know. It's probably one of the ladies, but it doesn't matter when karaoke's on.
We interrupt Sweet Caroline to let you know that some wrestler that you have never heard of beat up another wrestler that you have never heard of.
Yep, that's exactly.
Bump, bump.
John Cena. Yeah, no, you should come out to karaoke, man, sometime. If
The
not
plan
this
is to come out at some point. I promise. I know I say that every week.
I know.
Just like you say every week that you're going to come out to line dancing.
That is correct.
But I am planning. We are going to come out at some point. The question is just when.
Good.
So there you go.
That's fair.
It will happen. Oh man.
Good show today.
It was a really good show today. It was
Great shows all week.
Yeah, we did have a nice week of shows here. If you want more good shows, again, go subscribe on YouTube. That would be very, very helpful for us. A little bit more of a serious show today, but we'll still ask Chris, what did we learn today on the Real Jonathan Smith Show?
All right, class, what did we learn today?
You were so educational, I didn't learn a whole lot. I mean,
you were so educational, and I learned nothing.
I mean,
thanks, Chris.
Nothing entertaining. I mean, it was it was all so serious, but very detailed.
I've got one, but you go ahead.
Okay, go for it. Well, I mean, okay, so this
I don't want to steal your thunder here.
This has been the I go running every night before bed edition of the Real Jonathan Smith Show. And what I learned today is that it's hard to score 20 points in the NFL without a good QB.
True.
I learned that Jonathan says juice a lot on this show.
That's right.
And
it's important. Gotta stay hydrated.
During the break, learned that Tony Romo placed on leave by CBS. J.J. Watt has been elevated into his position.
I meant to ask Kent which performance he enjoyed more, Tony Romo's arrest or Mark Sanchez's, and I completely forgot to do that.
Or even Tiger Woods.
Yeah, seriously. Have you seen the AI video of Tony Romo doing the Dak Prescott hit thing?
Yes.
It's so funny.
It's so good.
It's so good. I learned that his name is pronounced George Gums Jr.
Yeah.
Not George Combs Jr.
That's important.
Yeah, it is important.
But
which is important? Pronouncing his name correctly or
yeah. That's that's probably really important.
Both
but yeah, Jack, our kind of behind the scenes guy, puts together a compilation of our our pause moments that feature the bell.
Yeah.
And we usually post that on X.
Yep.
And we got some of it from this week. Did you want to hear that?
No, we're good. It'll be on
Okay.
X. You can follow us at Ticket 1430. If you're on TikTok as well, it usually goes up on there too. So, yeah, it's the bell is one of the best parts of the show.
Absolutely.
And so, only 2 bell moments today.
Yeah.
But
Somebody
okay.
said in the chat that we missed one earlier, but it was during one of Cignetti's things. I don't know. How do you feel about ringing the bell for our sound clips?
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like kind of
absolutely. Depending on guests, because I know we've rung the bell during some guest altercations.
Right.
And there are some guests where it's like, absolutely ring the bell. There's other guests where it's like, don't ring the bell.
Yeah, you got to pick and choose because there was a couple of them during Kent's conversation that he probably would have hung up if I rang the bell on him. So,
Yeah, fair enough. He'd be like, what is that?
Choose
Like,
your battles.
That's we're 12 years old on the inside bell. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in throughout the week. We really appreciate it. We'll be back on Monday talking more Indiana football, Colts football, and as we get ready for the NFL season, we have football next week, baby.
Let's go.
We got the Hall of Fame game. It's going to be a great week of shows. We will talk to you on Monday starting at noon. Talk to you then. See ya.